Ladder 7-4, ladder 11, engine 5-1, engine 17, engine 14, battalion 13, battalion 12, A12, engine 13. Respond on fire for commercial fire, Regency Wood Apartments, 1401 South 18th Street.
Fire 4, battalion 13.
Battalion 13, fire 4.
I'll be responding with a delay from Port of Seattle Airport.
Copy.
Fire 4, battalion 7-4.
Battalion 7-4.
Yeah, I'm clear to last. Can you have me to Renton fire with ladder 7-4?
Copy. We're getting multiple RPs on this, reporting a building on fire, unknown number of units affected, possibly building 16 at Regency Wood. Is reporting that animals are being thrown out of a window at one of the units.
Fire 4, engine 13.
Engine 13, fire 4.
We have a visible thermal column.
The Regency Woods fire was the biggest incident that I have run to date. It could be one of those career incidents, could be the biggest incident I ever run. Today I'm going to go review some things from my perspective, things that went well for me, things that didn't go as well as I'd like, and hopefully from the process today you can learn and run the incident better than I did or improve your incident command skills. We're going to cover a couple basic things. I'm going to give you some incident background, some premise history, some of the resources we used a lot, and then going to do a command review, kind of my thought process through the entire ordeal. So a little incident background. The Regency Wood apartment complex was built in '81. We've inspected it a year ago. This whole complex is tight. The roads are tight to the complex. It's next to an inter-urban interface between wildland and apartment complexes. We'd had 80-degree plus days for 12 days in a row. Winds at the time of the incident were gusting from 17 to 30 miles an hour, and I swear as soon as I got there to do my 360, they were 30 plus. It was just blowing hard. And when you read about a wind-driven fire in the NIST studies and all the documentation, this was clearly a pure definition of a wind-driven fire that we were fighting. So the unit that was on fire was 12 units, 3 stories high. These are non-sprinklered buildings. And by the time I did my 360 in my command vehicle, we already had the exposure on the C. Charlie side of the structure was half involved with flames. The initial dispatch was at 1347 for this fire. It came in as a commercial fire, so we had 4 engines, 2 ladders, a couple battalion chiefs, and an A crew dispatch. The first engine company upgraded to a working fire incident and a 10-minute timer to get the clock rolling. And we actually, by 1407, had called full alarms to this, and because of the activity in the zone and us draining so many resources, we weren't able to fill the 4th alarm of the incident. Multiple calls, large thermal column was visible from many miles away. Initial actions by Engine 13, who was first on location, and their response time was 8 minutes and 9 seconds to get there. They reported a large multifamily occupancy fully involved, and they said it appeared evacuated. They pulled a couple 2.5s, and they went into a defensive strategy and were attacking the fire from side C of the structure, which we ended up calling side A later on. And then Engine 14 came in right behind them and established 18th Command.
Fire 4, engine 13.
Engine 13, fire 4.
Engine 13 on location, large, multi-family occupancy, fully involved fire, appears evacuated. Engine 13 is pulling up 2.5 to side C Charlie. We're in the defensive mode. Fire 4, engine 14.
Engine 14, fire 4.
On location, establishing command.
Copy, engine 14 on location, establishing 18 command at 1356.
I arrived on location at 13:59. I confirmed with Engine 14 to assume command what their actions were, what Engine 13's actions were, and then we did a formal transfer command. We kept it as a defensive strategy. At that time, I called a 3rd alarm, and like I mentioned earlier, we had a 4th pretty quickly. And I got to tell you, when I arrived, I was like, holy cow. It actually took me a minute when I was doing my 360 to figure out what was going on and what my incident action plan was going to be, because I've rolled on a lot of fires, and most of the time I get there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And this one, it actually took me a couple minutes to figure out what the plan was going to be.
912 on scene, direct 360.
Got it.
Command engine 11 at a hydrant at the intersection of 18th and the cross. All right, hang on. I got to get a feel for this. We got a lot of fire in one building, and we have another one ready to catch on fire. Hang on. 4, Battalion 12.
Battalion 12, Fire 4.
360 complete, going to be transferring command.
Battalion 12 is assuming command at 1359.
You can see the shingles on the next apartment building over starting to slough off.
Engine 14 from command.
Yes, engine 14.
You have command, let me know what assignments you've made so far. Understand, engine 13 has supply. They have a 2.5 on side A of the structure attacking, and engine 11 is setting up their stick on side B of the structure.
Affirmative. Command, it's engine 14, go ahead.
Lay 2.5s off of engine 13, bring a deck gun up to the A Adam, D David corner of the structure, and you'll protect exposure C Charlie.
Be a deck gun, supplied by 2.5 to Alpha Delta to protect the Charlie exposure.
That's affirmative.
Resources. We called for a lot of resources, and I didn't really realize how many resources I called for till I was going back over the incident, writing my incident action report and getting ready for this after actions review that we presented. But we called there was 8 battalion chiefs that ended up there, 17 engine companies, 6 ladder companies. We had 4 aid crews, 6 medic units, a couple MSOs. We had a brush strike team, and we had 8 different brush rigs total. We had 4 strike teams. We had from Zone 1 in the east side, Zone 5, Seattle, and Pierce and Snohomish County. And we used 3 of those strike teams actually at the incident, and then we kept Snohomish County in reserve to help cover the rest of the Zone 3 or South County. We had 1 rescue unit, 2 rehab units, and we ended up setting up 3 rehab areas. 2 air units, 2 PIOs who did a fantastic job. Fire chiefs 11, 12, 74, and 20, and Chief 74 ended up being my demobilization officer. Chief 12 became planning. We had 4 Zone 3 coordinators who managed the rest of the zone as I was draining all the resources out of our zone at South King County. We had a fire investigator, and then we moved into Tuckwill's mobile command unit. Was a great resource that helped us even better organize the incident once it arrived. Other agencies, Renton PD, who had handled all the evacuation. Then Public Works, we had water and stormwater. And the water department was great redirecting water into our area because we ended up flowing over 500,000 gallons of water at this incident. Red Cross for all the displaced people. Regency Wood Management, the complex managers helped us tremendously. And then, of course, Puget Sound Energy, who helped us with all the power lines we were dealing with. So just so you have a little perspective and try to give you a layout, we had the main fire building, which was 12 units, which was fully involved when we got there. And then we had the C1 exposure, C2 exposure, and B1 exposure. That's how we named them at the command post. And the C1 exposure, which is 4 units, was well involved. And we ended up having 20 units that were involved in the fire. So we had the initial apartment complex, and then we had fires that were almost 2 miles away. We had apartment complexes threatened. We had neighborhoods threatened that we evacuated. And then we had the Bonneville Power main substation right in the middle of this urban interface fire. My decision process is what we teach in our curriculum. It's what our officers use for the initial short report and incident commanders use at the command post. And it's the critical factors, trying to determine those, what my strategy is going to be, what risk management I have, and come up with my incident action plan, and then my tactical priorities. As I was going through my decision process, the first one is the critical factors, and there's 8 critical factors. The first 3 are fixed: the building, the arrangement, and the occupancy. The building, like I talked about, there are 3 stories, multifamily, 12 units in some, 4 units in the other. The arrangement, they're tight together, so we have exposure problems. Driveways are tight. It's hard to get all the apparatus in to where you want them, and water supply is laid. Occupancy, multifamily, we can just assume most of the time there's people at home, so we're going to have people coming out of those multi-occupancies, and we're going to have lots of people viewing the fire. The next set of critical factors I was thinking about were the fire, the life hazard, the resources, the actions, and then special circumstances. And special circumstances includes weather, and we had high winds, which had a dramatic effect on the fire. Actions, the effect that there are, I was thinking of the effects of that first couple companies, what their 2.5s and monitors were doing, not much because of the volume of fire. Life hazard, we had a lot of people around. We had an immediate call for CPR, so what were my EMS needs? What are we going to do with all those people that we evacuated? And then the fire, where's it going? How much is left to burn? How much has it had burned? Well, as we found out, it had burned 12 units. It had three more exposure units that it wanted to burn, and it had lots of brush fires that it wanted to burn. As I continued down my decision process, the strategy, we were definitely defensive in the fire unit and we were defensive in the C1 exposure, but we were offensive in the C2 and B1 exposure. And as the information came to the command post, we were offensive as we were trying to protect another whole apartment complex and other apartment buildings and neighborhoods that we were evacuating. So we had a two-pronged thing, defensive at the fire buildings, and then we were offensive as we were trying to protect neighborhoods and other apartment complexes. Risk assessment, there wasn't much risk we wanted to do at the fire building. Like I said, that was defensive, but we had a lot to save in whole neighborhoods and whole other apartment complexes. My incident action plan changed a couple times. Information was coming in the command post, rapid fire, which made me change it. Matter of fact, a couple times I thought, are you kidding me? I thought I was maybe on candid camera. I was looking around. It's like the tactical you practice in the station where your chief just throws all this stuff at you and you're thinking to yourself, this is ridiculous. This stuff never happens. Well, I'm here to tell you it actually does happen, and it happened to me.
And be advised, it looks like we've got grass fires that have hopped across 18th and are now burning in the wooded area across the street. It looks like we have CPR in progress by police.
We have fire spread to the east of the fire buildings at buildings 1201 and 1308 on Thomas Lane. That's unaddressed at this time.
We have fire spread in the trees going down Grant to additional buildings on the other side of the road.
I'm on 18th. It looks like the fire is moving down into some units on the north side of 18th.
Can you report to the Bowling Grove House Fire 1626 Grant Avenue South?
You have to send a different alarm to that. I'm overwhelmed.
Copy. Copy. Command's advising collapse potential on site C. Charles D. David corner of the fire building. All units at a perimeter.
So my problems or my incident action plan for the main fire building, we were defensive using master streams. For the fire and the C1 exposure, we were defensive in master streams. And then the C2, C3, and actually the B1 exposure, we were trying to protect those, and we did with master streams and hand lines. The possible occupants we had in the exposures, we were just trying to locate them using a primary search. The wildland fire, we were offensive in the wildland fires with hand lines and master streams and brush teams and hand tools. The neighborhood exposures, we were trying to protect those with master streams and hand lines. We actually evacuated some of the neighborhoods. And then the weather, we just continued to monitor the weather. Rehab was a major concern, and we ended up setting up 3 rehab units for all the firefighters, and then resources, the Valleycom, strike teams, zone coordinator were some of the resources that we used. We had several safety concerns, number one being the high winds, the way it was driving the fire into the fire buildings and exposing neighborhoods. We had collapse of the main fire building was a concern. We actually put out alert tones to get people to clear away from the main fire building, make sure we had a good perimeter. Exertion of firefighters, it was a hot day. We were using lots of them. That's why we ended up setting up 3 rehab units. The terrain of the land, the high tension power lines from Bonneville Power, and then the transition from the structure fire to the interface fire was also a concern.
It's burning in an apartment complex, in our apartment complex. I hope it's not going to go to our side. This is bad, incredibly bad.
Basic command structure we had the IC and we had an aide there. We had PIOs, safety officer, and then we had 4 divisions. We had Charlie, Delta, 18th, and Grant, and then we established one branch, which was 8th branch, and their main responsibility was to protect the Falcon Ridge neighborhood. As the incident went on, we set up a planning section and we developed work periods. The first work period went from the start of the fire to 1800 in the evening, 2000 in the evening, because we basically wanted everybody out of the brush area at that time. Then we set up work period for the evening hours till 0600 the next morning. They basically monitored the fire building, some investigation, and all the brush fires and protecting the neighborhoods. And then we had the last portion, which was the final investigation overhaul portion and continued spot fires, which made the incident last 30 hours. We had a demobilization plan that was put together, and then we also had the Zone 3 coordinators who did a great job of helping the incident commander with myself, the incident commander, with resources. And then because we emptied the whole zone, they did a great job of getting people back into the zone to handle the normal day-to-day emergencies that were happening in all the South County fire departments. For logistical operations, we had communications, different radio frequencies. We used Fire 4, 5, 6, and 7. We kept strike teams on the radio frequency they came in as they were assigned to branches and groups. We had a medical unit leader, MSO1. He was responsible for all the crew rehab. He also did the rehab for all the police who were doing evacuation. We ended up having 3 separate rehab locations. We had one near the command post, one at the staging area, which was at 18th and Grant, and then one up towards the Lincoln Division, which turned into a Lincoln branch because we were kind of spread out at that point. We treated one patient who had CPR. Letter 74 did that. We had one firefighter released from the scene, and then one firefighter who suffered minor injuries. We used several divisions and branches throughout the incident. We helped them to organize their objectives, to get those accomplished, helped us keep our span of control clear, and helped us with our accountability. We didn't activate all of these at one time. Sometimes we had divisions that turned into branches. Sometimes the division went away after we met the objectives for that division. To help give you some perspective, you can see Charlie and Delta divisions. Those are the 2 main divisions that were used to fight the fire and protect the exposures. Neither one of those apartment complexes really had any survivable space for those apartment units. And then you can see where the command post is located, and then Grant Avenue and South 18th Street were the main streets used, and the staging area that we talked about was at the intersection of Grant and 18th. And continuing to give you perspective, you can see where the apartment fire is located on the left of your screen, and you can see the 18th Division and the 8th Branch, which was created actually to protect that neighborhood from that fire you see. Those were brush fires all along the Bonneville power right-of-ways. You can see where the apartment fire was going to be down our lower left of the screen, how it jumped over 18th and then started going up and then jumped over Grant. And you can see where the staging rehab, one of the rehab areas was located. We actually had 3 during the incident. And then in the middle of all this, towards the beginning, that first 20 minutes of the incident, the house fire I talked about, they were dispatched to house fire just to add more confusion. But here's just another layout of the incident. We also used emergency management. Our city policy, we need, after a certain amount of alarms, we activate our emergency management. They assisted with some public information, resources, worked with our PIOs who were at the incident site. They also contacted the state emergency management and other counties, because we had 3 counties who were actually involved in this, because we used resources just to make everyone aware of what was going on. So they were helpful as we went through the incident. What went well? Well, we always want to talk about the good things before we talk about the lessons learned. So what went well? The dispatch center was awesome. The dispatchers that were on duty and then the dispatchers they recalled to handle the rest of the zone were great. Good communications. I don't think they missed any of my communications back to them. The way they got me the resources was awesome. Automatic and mutual aid, we've worked hard as a zone and a county on our automatic and mutual aid responses. From the incident command post, it seemed to work flawlessly. They were there quickly and integrated right into our system. MSO rehab and medics, I can't say enough about the MSO who set up all our rehab, the medics who provided rehab care and CPR and medical care on some of our a couple of the firefighters that were injured. They were great throughout the day. And then battalion chiefs, I know I'm a battalion chief, sounds like we're tooting our own horns, but the battalion chiefs that were assigned to divisions, branches, those guys were on fire. They knew their jobs, they did their jobs well, they communicated well with me, gave me all sorts of great information at the command post that helped me make decisions, and we made some of those decisions on the fly just on some radio reports, so thank you for those guys, were great. And then Renton PD, the evacuations, I was just given commands to Fire 4, which is our main tactical frequency, which areas we need evacuated, and they just handled the whole situation. That went really well for us. The water department, George from the water department came to the command post. I told him my water needs, what we had to do, and he got more water to us. Even I talked to a couple of the pump operators. They could tell the difference when the water department, Renton Water Department, got more water flowing to our area. They filled back up our reservoir, and like I mentioned earlier, we used over 500,000 gallons of water, so they were great. Zone 3 coordinators, I think there was 3 chiefs that went to our dispatch center who handled all the coordination of the strike teams and providing service to the rest of the zone as the incident went on. And then, I didn't physically see this, but I heard reports of Engine 22 and Engine 53. Give a shout out to both those crews. They stopped fires on the flank. I know one from going into the Woodland complex. So great job for those guys. And then the effort, determination, and commitment of everybody who was there. The way we communicated on the radio, using the order model, We had rehab, but I know that a lot of them didn't get to rehab when they wanted to, but they just kept fighting and working on the fire. And we stopped fire from getting to 3 neighborhoods in one other apartment complex, which was great. And then the active 911 system, which is a new system we're demoing. For me, at the Incident Command Post, having that active 911 and being able to pull up the map system and then the satellite pictures. So what people are telling me where these brush fires are going, I could see it via satellite pictures, was a great help at the command post. So we talked about what went well, lessons learned. There's lots of lessons learned, so I hope you can take from things that I learned and apply them to when you run an incident. Overhead team. I should have called for the overhead team earlier on in the incident. It would have relieved some of the stress of the command post. So you get that planning, the demobilization, the logistics, and you just kind of fill out the rest of the sections for your command team. That would have been a big difference. So getting them to the scene sooner would have been a big help. We got the mobile command unit there later. It would have been nice to get there earlier, because once we moved into the mobile command unit, then we had the whiteboards above us so everybody could see the divisions, groups. Our incident action plan was laid out so everybody could see. We had radios and all our radio frequencies in front of us. Me and my aide were sitting next to each other, and then the planning and demob were all right there. Allowed us to have instant weather, so we knew exactly what the winds were going to do, what the projected winds were going to do, which was a huge factor in this fire. And then we could have the mobile comm up too, so we could see where everybody was. So that would have been nice if we would have done that earlier, and it was a big help. The way I organized the incident would be something that I would do different. I remember I talked about a safety concern earlier about the interface between fire and then interface fire. There was a safety concern, the way we tied that together. I think if I would have done it different, there's a couple different ways we could have done it. We could have had an IC and then had a fire branch and then a wildland fire branch and put those divisions there. Or we could have kept an IC, had an operations, and then had a fire branch and a wildland fire branch and a branch. Because that wildland fire was kind of it was different, and it kind of get people in a different mindset if they knew they were going to a wildland fire branch. So those are a couple things that I think could have made the incident run better there as far as the structure. Safety officer, I had a safety officer at the beginning. And then, I think a lot of us have our checklists, our command checklists, and I checked that box off, and in my mind, I had a safety officer. And later on in the incident, I recommitted him to a division, and I never got a safety officer or multiple safety officers going back in. So that was an issue you could learn from your check boxes. And then PD to the command post. While PD did a fantastic job of evacuations, I should have got them to the command post earlier, so we made sure our coordination, our evacuations were good, and they knew exactly what I was looking for. And we kind of dropped the ball, or I dropped the ball as incident commander. Our notification back to the citizens when we could let them back in to their neighborhoods, to their apartment complexes, was delayed because we lost a little bit of that tie. So getting them back to the command post earlier would have been a big help. So another thing we learned is those are first 2 initial companies. We knew we had a big thermal column where the fire was, but as they were coming up Puget, which was the main road to the fire, they had people waving them in frantically to an area, and that area ended up being not at the apartment complex, but one area behind, which caused us a long lay to get those initial attack lines in, over 600 feet. So sometimes just trust your instinct. People want to help us, but sometimes they can mislead us. Command post communications. We teach in our curriculum over and over again, the incident commander cannot miss communications at the command post. There was a couple I missed, but one of the ones that bugged me the most was I missed an emergency traffic. They had to tone me or call me a second time before I caught it. And so it's something we teach in the curriculum. Focus on your radio. That's why you have an aide, and don't miss emergency traffic communications or any communications from your crews working. Priority traffic versus good news. Radio frequencies were busy. We're just starting the concept of priority traffic, what we want to hear on the radio. We just started teaching that in our live fire, just coming through our IMS curriculum, so we need to continue to improve on that. And then defensive operations management. We also teach this in our IMS curriculum. You have to, when it's a defensive fire, you really need to manage how your units come in and where you lay the supply lines. We got our first supply line in, and this is on me, and then it didn't allow us to get our second ladder truck in and get them supply, and we'd have to overhaul a lot of supply lines to support those structures. So we teach it. I can tell you it's true. So when you're doing defensive operations, you need to manage your way your rigs get in there and manage your supply lines. And then tablet command for tracking and documentation. It's just something we're starting to use, the tablet command program. It would have been great on this incident to manage all the movement. It ties in with our Valleycom and benchmarks on there. So those are a few lessons that we've learned. I'm sure as you watch video and you look at YouTube, you'll look at all of it and you'll say, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? That's great. That's how we learn. That's how we get better. When we teach IMS, that's what we do. We pull up YouTube's videos and say, hey, look at this. What should we do here? I send it to my officers all the time. Hey, how would you do this? What are your critical factors? What were the problems? What would be your initial attacks? So these are some of the lessons I learned. Hope you find more that you can learn from our incident. There were so many complexities to this incident: the evacuation of apartment complexes and neighborhoods, the wind, the rapid fire spread, the multiple fires, the terrain, and then just for me, the most complex thing was just the rapid information that was coming at me. That people were feeding information to the command post so rapidly that made it very complex. But I just need to thank everyone. I mean, I may have been the incident commander, but we talk about team and a team effort. This was incredible team effort by everyone who came to the incident. The battalion chiefs from the zone and from the county, knowing their responsibilities and jobs and their professionalism and helping me at the command post and the different divisions and branches and groups they were in. The firefighters, what work ethic, what dedication. Those guys worked long, hard, difficult hours, sometimes longer breaks from rehab than they should have. Just need to thank all of them. The zone and county plan, our strike teams, our automatic aid, our mutual aid, all worked well. It's stuff we planned for a long time, and it worked. The dispatch center, the professionalism of the dispatch center, the dispatchers I was working with were on top of their game, gave me hints when I needed them, got information to me when I needed it. They were fantastic. The Zone 3 coordinators that went to Valleycom and then helped me some at the command post, they were great. So I just want to thank, again, everyone's efforts. I would consider it a successful incident, even though there is lessons we learned from all these. I think a lot of things went very well in this fire.
You're going to unify the Grand Division and the Exposure Division, and you want to switch the fire.